Day, December 23rd, 2024. I'm Julie Hartman in my Santa hat, which only happens here once a year, and it is great, as always, to be with you. I remember the first time I donned a Santa hat on the show is when our dear friend Spencer Clavin came on to talk about the Thinker of the Month last December, who was Jesus Christ. It's hard to top that as a Thinker of the Month. And I remember he came on the air wearing a Santa hat, and I was like, okay, I need to go dig one up from the treasure chest somewhere here at Salem. 844-861-5537. Is that right? 844-861-5537 is the call-in number. I'm looking over at Sean, who's giving me an IDK. It is the right number. Thank God one of us knows it, as opposed to one of us not knowing it and the other just throwing his hands up. But thank you so much for being here. And hello to Sean in the producer's dungeon, who tried to give me a Christmas gift today.
Yeah, you tell him.
And you tell him.
You tell him.
So Sean has been working on this trail mix. Those of you who are watching Sean and Julie know that he was working on this trail mix for Christmas. He very graciously gifted it to me, and I was extremely appreciative, but the ingredients in it, I don't like. I don't like nuts. I don't like dried fruit. I don't like dried bananas, which I guess are dried fruit, in addition to the mango and the apricot. You had some popcorn in there, but there were only a few, and then you had pretzels, and I don't like pretzels. So I said, you know what? Give that to someone who would like it. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That's just not my cup of tea.
I toiled and slaved for hours over this.
Well, not just for me. Don't make it.
It is magical. Ain't no mountain high enough mix, and you rejected my Christmas gift.
I gave it back because I thought...
And Rick's over here loving it.
Good. Rick can enjoy it. Someone else will enjoy it more. Now, Mark Pollock did come in and give us the Christmas crack. That's right. We do have a crack dealer here at the station, and he makes this toffee every single year, and he does it without nuts because he knows that I don't like nuts, and he made me this fantastic toffee. So thank you, Sean. Boy, I'm looking at him, and I can actually tell he's mad at me, which is a little bit uncomfortable, to put it mildly, to watch him be so mad at me. But you should be grateful, again, that I wanted to give it to someone who would like it. Someone in the chat is already asking how many ingredients there are. There are many.
Yeah.
And I don't like any of them.
Have you ever slaved over dried mangoes, cutting dried mangoes? I have wounds.
Well, yeah, I actually saw that. I actually saw that on your hands. I thought that maybe Fergus or Coyote bit you, but apparently it's your wounds.
Cutting dried mangoes. That's what did... Okay, let me see if I can remember what's in it. Dried mangoes, banana chips, dried strawberries, dried apricots, pretzels, nuts, peanuts, smoked almonds, cheesy popcorn, caramel puffs.
I don't like any of those. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, guess what? They don't like you either.
Well, thank you. I will have to live with that. Okay, we have got quite the show today. We are going to oscillate between extremely maudlin and extremely hilarious. Let's start with the former, though. Oh my gosh, did you all see what happened yesterday in New York City? I was on the phone with Sean last night, and I mentioned this to him, and he had no idea. A person was burned alive on the subway. Only in America. Only in New York City. These are the kinds of things, by the way, that someone like President Vladimir Putin would point to in order to discredit and undermine America. I have sometimes watched the speeches that he delivers in Russia in order to paint America as this terrible country. And one of the things that he often points to is that we legitimize child genital mutilation in America. And you know what? Putin is a horrible person. He's wrong about most things. He's not wrong about that. And when he points to that, it's pretty damn embarrassing for us. This is another thing that our enemies point to. They go, in America, crime runs rampant, and they point to stories that one would think were made up. This is not made up. Literally on Sunday morning, someone went on the subway and a migrant, or as Sean said, screw this migrant stuff, an illegal alien, lit a person on fire. That's right. Let's look at the story here and let's pull up a picture. Don't worry, it's not too graphic. This is according to the New York Post. A Guatemalan migrant has been arrested for allegedly lighting a sleeping subway rider on fire in Brooklyn. Do we have the photo to put up? friends. That's the person there on the left. At 7:30 in the morning, on the F train at Coney Island's Stillwell Avenue station, a Guatemalan migrant walked over to the victim. I'm reading here from NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. The suspect calmly walked over to the victim, who was in a seated position at the end of the subway car, and used what we believe to be a lighter to ignite the victim's clothing, which became fully engulfed in a matter of seconds. Now, I know a lot of people, including some of my family members, who regularly take this F train in Brooklyn. And it could have been any of them very easily. Thank God it wasn't. But oh my gosh, this is not only a killing, but this is so depraved. This really enters another category of death here. Officials said, again, reading from the New York Post, that the 33-year-old suspect came to the United States in 2018 from Guatemala. And then, you got to hear this, apparently he was deported under Donald Trump's administration. But then he came back into the United States under President Biden. Reading again from the New York Post, he was detained by Border Patrol agents in Arizona in June of 2018. That's when he was sent back. And then since then, he came back into the country and he was living at a shelter on Randall's Island at the time of the infraction. Now, interestingly, the suspect did not run away and flee. I've been noticing that there's a tendency among some extremely violent criminals to use it as a tactic of eluding law enforcement to hide in plain sight. Over the weekend, I actually was watching Zero Dark 30, which is a fantastic film that I had not seen until this weekend. By the way, whenever I think of that film, I'm reminded of the Joan Rivers joke. She was such an icon. And she practiced her jokes. She wrote them down on index cards and then she would practice them. She was extremely well rehearsed, although you would never know. She had a hilarious joke about Zero Dark 30 when the film came out. She goes, "Zero Dark 30 can be compared to the Kardashians. Their talent level, 0. The men they sleep with, dark. And their IQ, 30. But I was watching the movie Zero Dark 30, and it was amazing that Osama bin Laden hid in plain sight. He hid in this compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. He was actually about a mile away from the Pakistani military academy in this very urban place. And I remember Whitey Bulger, who was that notorious killer who was on the FBI's most wanted list and then was arrested, I think in like 2012. He lived over in Santa Monica, right by the 3rd Street Promenade, hiding in plain sight. And that's what this Guatemalan migrant attempted to do. Reading again from the New York Post. In a video, cops yelled to a crowd, "Did anybody see anything? Did anybody see anything?" As smoke poured from inside the subway car. The suspect brazenly sat on a nearby bench as cops huddled around, pulling his hood up at one point just before an officer spoke to him. So he just went over and lit this person on fire, got out of the subway, and just sat on a bench there like, catch me. "Do me a favor, walk down there," the cop said, motioning down the platform with his radio. "I need this space cleared up." Then the man, the suspect, stood up, left the scene, and according to Tisch, quote, "unbeknownst to the officers who responded, he had just stayed on the scene and was seated on the bench on the platform just outside the train car." And then finally, he was kind of seeming a little suspicious. He put his hood up, and that is when the police walked over and asked him questions. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Again, this is a level of depravity that is really beyond one's imagination. I remember, Sean, earlier this year, there was that story on Long Island, as you would encourage me to say it, of these individuals cutting up a body, not just murdering a body, but cutting up a body and then dispersing their body parts around Long Island. And a child, a 3rd grader walking to school, happened upon a severed arm. And then it was found that the people who participated in this murder and dismembering of the body were released without bail. They were allowed to, I think they had an ankle bracelet, they had some kind of monitoring, but they were released without having to put up any bail because of the no cash bail laws in New York City, which said that dismembering a body did not count as one of the crimes, which was eligible to require someone to post bail. So here we just see again in these blue cities the consequences of Democrat policies, the consequences of letting illegal immigrants into the country. Now, of course, as we say often on this show, I have enormous sympathy for illegal immigrants. As Sean often encourages me to do, I'm not saying all illegal immigrants are criminals. I'm only saying that in a humorous voice because the idea is so preposterous that we have to do these Maoist self-criticism sessions whenever we're criticizing a illegal immigrant who is a criminal. We have to somehow make it clear that we're not painting all illegal immigrants with one broad brush. But it is a big vindication of Trump that there are people with very bad motives and very bad histories and actions coming into this country to purposefully do harm. So, my gosh, we of course pray for the victim and his or her family. You know, I mentioned earlier this year, I was in New York. I was broadcasting from New York, and I had some harrowing experiences on the subway. Thankfully, didn't see anybody get lit on fire, but I was only on the subway maybe once or twice, and my gosh, it was so awful. I got on the subway, the doors closed, these strung out people were walking over to me, trying to talk with me, and it was funny to look around and see how regular commuters on the subway were just totally unfazed by this. Any other person would have their alarm up, you know, they would be scared by the fact that there were so many suspicious and indeed menacing people on the subway. But New Yorkers have gotten so jaded and so used to it. Even my sister was on the subway. She had 2 pocket knives in her purse. And I said to her, Harriet, like, this is not normal for you to have to go commute and have pocket knives in your purse. And they're just like, oh, yeah, well, it's normal when you're living in New York. Well, speaking of murder, and of course, as I mentioned, we will get to fun stuff. And trust me, after this story, it's going to be really fun. But first, yeah, Sean, you want to cut in?
Does it strike you as odd that no one tried to help? No one tried to put this woman out? They just sat there filming it? I think that's an interesting aspect of this.
Yeah.
The people just sat there watching. Also, there are reports that the illegal migrant was drunk. That's why he didn't run, and he was incapable of running because he was sauced. But nobody tried to put out the flames or anything. And on a lighter note, your mother says she'll take the trail mix. So bang, you're taking it home anyways, whether you like it or not. Ah! That's
great. Hi. She will not. She is such a healthy eater. I really, really doubt that. But yeah, I didn't see that as part of the story that they didn't rush to help. I mean, to, I guess, play the devil's advocate, when a person is on fire, there's really not much that you can do, and you don't want to put yourself into harm's way. But I hear you. I mean, I had a friend who was on a run, and she fell and she sprained her ankle. This is just out here in Los Angeles at 8 o'clock in the morning. And she said that she was hobbling for about 2 blocks. She was trying to get to Alfred's, the coffee store, in order to sit and get some help and call someone. And she was hobbling, and she said, nobody helped me. Like, I was just hobbling. She said at one point I was crawling on the sidewalk in order to get to Alfred's. And she does not look like a homeless person. You know, she doesn't look like someone, if you would approach them, that, you know, you may be in harm's way, and nobody helped her. So you're right. I think we now, because there's so much danger and we're so desensitized to crazy stuff happening around us and dangerous stuff, that we kind of silo ourselves and we put the almost like the horse blinders on, and we're like, okay, as long as I and my own bubble are safe, I don't have an obligation to help someone else. So it's a very good point. Had Daniel Penny been on that subway, I have a feeling it may be a different story. I believe in the death penalty, but it's costing too much. Looking festive. Yes, I am looking festive today. One time a year, I'll be wearing this hat. All right, let's lighten things up before we finish with our final installment of the Gospels series. So Sean suggested that I do a segment on this. And originally I was opposed because you also wanted me to do a segment on a bear falling out of a tree and hitting a hunter.
which people enjoyed, by the way.
Did they? Oh, well, I'll
Yes.
take your word for it. This
Yes.
one is hilarious. So can you explain it actually? AI did a simulation of...
Yeah, and for the record, I asked you to do this when it came out. It is now several months old. Thank you for
Months?
that. Yeah, maybe, certainly weeks.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, I did it when it came out. They asked people in other countries, Europe, what they think people in America in different states look like. And so these are AI-generated pictures of what people in Europe think women look like in different states.
All right. Let's look. I have a list here. First, let's look at Florida. You know what? That's totally accurate. Oh my gosh. Florida should use that on their tourism website or on their billboards. I love that. Yes. Okay. Let's look at okay, so that's a red state. Let's do Massachusetts. Oh my God. Is that Harvard in the background? I think that's Harvard in the background. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. First of all, there's so much about this. I love that the person is looking like she's Irish. She's got the red hair and the freckles. A rather corpulent individual. Love the Duncan. Love the angry face. That is hilarious. So wait, do we know what country this is, or it's a combination?
It just said European.
European. Okay. All right. Let's do New York. Another fantastic one. Boy, those Massachusetts and those New York girlies, they look very similar. Let's go back for a minute to Florida just to compare Florida to that. Yeah, I think I'd rather be in Florida. Okay, let's go to Oregon. Oh, wow. Oh my God. Those of you who are listening, you have to go on YouTube and look at this. This is a woman. What is she smoking? Is that like, that looks like a hookah thing.
It's a hookah.
She's got a burger.
Who
Oh my
knows?
God. This is like trolling these people. This is hilarious. All the liberal state individuals look fat and angry. The Florida woman looks happy and hot. Okay, let's go to Texas. Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Is this really what they think of us? This is fantastic. Wow. Well, even though these are red states, conservative states, the garb is not always the most conservative, but hey, I don't have a problem with it. Love that she's got the huge gun. Definitely tells us what other people think of us. Okay, let's do Virginia. Oh, that is good. Oh my God, that may be my favorite one. I love how they have the burger and the shake for all of the blue states. And it's just a different theme. For Massachusetts, it's Irish. For New York, it's Yankees. For this, it's vaguely patriotic. Love that she looks totally checked out, angry, and apathetic. Let's go to Washington State. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Look at the rolls. Oh, my God. And she's bald. Let's compare that again with Oregon. Yeah, geographically, very similar. Love that. Oh, that is good. That is so fantastic. What's your favorite one, Sean? I gotta say, my favorite one's Oregon.
I think the Washington State one.
Washington State or Virginia. The Virginia one is hilarious. One of the chatters is saying they may as well have an IV drip hooked to a huge burger, or maybe hookah hooked to the burger is worse. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. All right, let's talk about two things. The first one is truly exciting. If you have been dreaming of going to a presidential inauguration, especially to a Trump inauguration, you could win free tickets to go through Salem. Right now, you can get a once-in-a-lifetime VIP experience to attend the inauguration in Washington, D.C. You can get airfare paid for, plus tickets with you and a guest, and tickets to the inaugural ball. Go to salempodcastnetwork.com/Trump. This is a trip for two to Washington, D.C. As I said, tickets to the inauguration and to the inaugural ball. You can also enter by scanning the QR code on your screen right there on the right. You can also go to snc.tv, or you can text Trump to 94878. That's text Trump to 94878. This offer does not last long. Look at this. Airline tickets, hotel, tickets to the inauguration and the ball, plus a $600 Visa gift card. Go and enter, my gosh, and take me as your plus one. Again, go to snc.tv or text Trump to 94878. That's text Trump to 94878. In addition to that, you can also, while you're at it, go to mypillow.com or call 1-800 what's the number? 566-6745. Sean's laughing at that. And use the promo code Hartman. You can get your final Christmas gifts for their Christmas extravaganza. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. You can get their famous My Slippers, regularly priced at $119.98, but for a limited time, they're only $59.98. Get their 6-piece towel set for $29.98. Flannel sheets, as I said, for as low as $59.98. And that's not all. They're extending their 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 receive absolutely free shipping. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. That's the promo code Hartman, spelled Hartman. So as you know, in order to increase our biblical literacy and get into the season this time of year, I've been doing a gospel series for the month of December, where each episode I do a few stories from the Gospels, which are remarkably concise, and talk about the modern and eternal relevance of these stories. Now, 2 things to note. The first is we have decided to do 10. We are technically today on number 9, and tomorrow was supposed to be number 10. But I got news from my colleagues here that we are off tomorrow. What a shame to be off from work. We'll just have to do 2 stories today. We'll do 9 and 10 today. That's the first thing. The second thing is when I was on the phone last night with Sean, we were talking about what stories I should do. And I had already decided on one, and I was thinking about which other one I should do. And he suggested that I do the Good Samaritan story. And I said, haven't I already done that? And he said, no. And I said, I think I have already done that. And he said, no. Well, Sean, I went through the archives. I have already done it. I have. And you know how I know? I asked our art consultant, Robert Florzak, to send me some images of the Good Samaritan. We actually already have some still.
Yeah, I see it there.
Yep, I did it.
That was wrong.
And he sent it. So thank you, Sean, so much for that. Well, thankfully, I came with a backup plan. We're going to, apropos of Christmas being in 2 days, talk about the most classic Christmas story, the Annunciation, and of course, the birth of Jesus. The Annunciation has been a subject of particular fascination to me because Mother Mary and what she went through seems so alien to us. It's very difficult for most women to think that one day the angel Gabriel would come to us and go, hey, you are highly favored. You have the Messiah in your womb. It seems like something that very few people could relate to. But actually, this is what I love about the Gospels and the Bible. The more that you allow yourself to sit with these stories and try to find some tide to you, what you will see is that there often is a large tide to you. And in the case of Mother Mary, she kind of represents something that I think all of us go through. Let's put up the nativity scene. This is not the Annunciation, although it is one of my favorite scenes. And actually, last year we did a art special on for Christmas art, and this one is called Nativity at Night by St. John. He is a Flemish, I believe, painter who painted this in the 17th century. And I love the light that is showing on Mary's face. This is just fantastic artistic talent here displayed. We take for granted that this is a painting. It looks so real, like the glowing of light in front of us. But again, we forget that this is just done with a paint brush and some minerals. I love also, you look up there and it's an angel or perhaps the Holy Spirit, and it is so beautifully illuminated. So that's one of my favorites. But Mary, when she is visited by the angel Gabriel, what I love about that story is that it says that she had fear and hesitation when Gabriel made that annunciation. And then she decided to carry that news, some would argue that burden, it's both an honor and a burden, with great stoicism and obligation. And think about it from Mother Mary's perspective. She was probably in disbelief. She was probably terrified that this angel was coming to her and telling her this news. And also, it would have massive repercussions for her because her husband, Joseph, would think that she was going around and sleeping with another person, and then all the people around them would think a similar thing. But again, she honored that obligation with such grace. And I think what it calls to mind is that all of us, even if it's not having an angel tell you that you are pregnant with the Messiah, all of us have things that are presented to us in our lives that make us feel uncomfortable or make us feel afraid. And sometimes we ask ourselves, why do I have this obligation? To make it personal, I have a sister with very severe autism, and I know I'm going to have to take care of her for the rest of my life. And sometimes I go, why was I given that? It's a burden and it's an honor to do that for her. I think all of us in different parts of our lives are presented with things that we don't always know why. But I think Mary provides a very good example to us of how we ought to handle such things. And on a theological note on this story, which I think that people don't quite realize, Robert Florzak, who in addition to being a fantastic artist is also a supreme intellectual. The amount that guy knows about almost any topic never ceases to amaze me. He told me the other day that there's a great misconception with regard to the term immaculate conception. When we hear that term, Immaculate Conception, we tend to think of it with regard to Jesus's birth, that he was conceived through the Virgin Mary with the Holy Spirit, and he was born, in order to communicate this, I'll just say it in the most crass and direct way, free of sex. But Robert actually said that the Immaculate Conception refers to the fact that Mary herself was conceived without sin. That she was one of the only, if not the only, besides the Messiah, individuals on earth who was pure and did not sin. And so when Mary says, I am the Immaculate Conception, it makes more sense, because why would she say I am the Immaculate Conception if it was referring to Jesus's birth? When she says I am the Immaculate Conception, what she means is that I am the person who is the pure vessel spiritually and physically through which the Messiah can be born. So it seems like a kind of a strange story. And of course it is. But again, I love looking at it and seeing the modern relevance to carry and bear your burdens and your obligations with grace. Not perhaps being totally clear on why you have them, but knowing that you have been trusted with them for a reason. And then, of course, there is the classic story of Jesus's birth. I would pull some fantastic images of this, but alas, I had prepared for the Good Samaritan part 2. But this story of Jesus being born, of them having to go from house to house in order to find a place for Mary to give birth, them being rejected from hotels and from people's homes, having to go to a manger and having the Son of God being born in a stable surrounded with animals on hay in the most unglamorous way possible. It really is an incredible thing. So often people who disparage Christianity say that it is an elitist religion or that it is a white supremacist religion. And the more that I come to know this religion as someone who grew up pretty secular myself and later in my life have kind of discovered this, the more I see that so much of this is totally reversed. I remember one of the great charges against Christianity was that it's harsh and stern and unforgiving. That was paradoxically something that I had always understood of Christianity growing up. And as I said on a few episodes ago, I was so amazed this summer when I went to the Vatican and I saw in front of me, on my left and on my right, enormous statues of the two most important saints, St. Peter and St. Paul. And I looked at those two and I went, that guy, St. Peter, betrayed Christ 3 times. And that guy, St. Paul, persecuted Christians. And somehow they had a road to redemption. So much so that Jesus trusted them with carrying on his missionary, and they are deserving of enormous statues in front of the temple of God on earth. That is an amazing testament to the versatility and the universality, and indeed the forgiving nature of this religion. And again, if we look at this birth story of Jesus, we kind of sometimes dismiss it as an idiosyncratic part of the Gospels, that he was born in a manger and surrounded by all of these animals. This is an amazing thing, that the King of Kings, as Christians believe, the person who would deserve the most splendor and the most beauty, was born in the most humble way. Indeed, was born in a way in which he was kind of turned on. People rejected, again, Mary coming and giving birth in their homes. This speaks so much to the fact that Jesus, it is believed, is not coming down as a ruler, but coming down as a humble servant and someone who is equal to us in every single way. And so I'm just very appreciative more and more as I get older of these details that I, again, originally just kind of considered as, oh, this is just part of the story. But it didn't have to be. And almost every other biblical story in different religions, the God or the gods or the important people are depicted and treated in a far more elitist light than this one is. And so it's just something that I think all of us shouldn't take for granted this fantastic holiday season. So that's 9 and 10, people. The Annunciation and the birth. We could do the Good Samaritan as a part 2, but I think we'll leave it at that for now, unless Sean has a final note to cut in and say, besides the fact that we all wish you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas. I always thought an important part of that story was the 3 kings, the 3 wise men that visit the baby. To denote the grandeur and stature that this baby brings to earth, even though born in a manger, visited by 3 kings who traveled afar with frankincense and myrrh, just to remind you how important this birth was as part of that story.
Yeah. I was listening. I was also monitoring the chat. It's true.
That's cool. It's all right. You were ignoring me like you ignored
No!
Ain't No Mountain High Enough trail mix, which I'm sending home with you for your mother, and I hope she enjoys.
That is very sweet. Maybe she will. She's, as I said, a very healthy eater, so I doubt it. But you're right. That is a very good part of the story. And also there's something with I should have thought this through before I said it. Something with the shepherds and the sheep. And we're all shepherds, or maybe we're all sheep. I'm going to check that one and come back to you next Christmas with it. Sean is cracking up. Thank you all so much for being here.
Jesus is the shepherd and we are the flock.
Totally. That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly what I meant to say. Room to grow, room to learn. Thank you all so much for being here. I wish you a Merry, Merry Christmas and a early Happy New Year. And I hope to see you again soon. Take care.